This is the Sports Sit-Down with Mike Damergis.
Mike Damergis joined here by former Denver Broncos lineman and linebacker, number 77, Karl Mecklenburg, an author, an athlete, and one tough SOB. What an inspiration it was to watch you during the 1980s, and you left nothing on the field, did you?
You know, if you time a football game from snap to whistle and just leave all the other time out, all the other stuff that's actually not action, it's less than 10 minutes. I just played defense, so it was less than 5 minutes over 3 hours. So yeah, there is no reason to rest on a football field. You're gonna regret it afterwards. So no, I was full go all the time, and I was fortunate. The coaches put me in positions to be involved in the play and move me around and put me where they thought the ball was going to go. And there's no place I'd have rather been.
Now, you came around in the league when it was pretty exciting. 1983, just a couple of good quarterbacks came into the league, and you were lucky enough to have one in John Elway. What was it like to watch John on the sidelines, watch him go through the growing process? Because he didn't hit the ground running exactly his first year.
True. Yeah. Actually, he was a backup for the first half of the first year. He was always a great 2-minute quarterback. The scramble around and throw the ball across his body and downfield and whatever, just able to use his athletic ability. But to become a great teammate, to become a great preparation guy, that took a while. And when you're such an unbelievably talented athlete, I think, and you've always been able to accomplish whatever you wanted to accomplish with just athleticism, you get to the pros, all of a sudden you're not the best athlete on the field, even if you're John Elway. And you got to learn the game, and it took him a couple years, and he picked it up, and off we went.
And you had one tough coach in Dan Reeves, and he had a tough love relationship with his players, particularly with Elway.
Yeah, they were so much alike. They wanted to win more than anything. I remember we had a coach on our team. He didn't really do a whole lot. Basically, he just blew a whistle every 5 minutes. That was his job. He was out there. He'd spin the whistle around his finger on the lanyard, and every 5 minutes he'd blow the whistle, and we'd change from a pass rush drill to a run blocking drill to whatever. We just move around, and that was his job. Except this guy was an unbelievable golfer. Dan loved to play in charity golf tournaments, but he had to win. So he had this guy on his team all the time in the charity golf events, so he could win. That was just Dan's personality. It was win at all costs, and we won a lot of games. I mean, in the 12 years I played with the Broncos, we had 2 losing seasons. 3 Super Bowl appearances, all kinds of playoff wins, and it was a great situation to be in, for sure. And having a guy like Elway as your quarterback allowed defense to take chances. We were able to blitz in situations other teams couldn't blitz in, because when you're overloading something, you're giving something else up, and if other teams without a quarterback like John got behind, there was a good chance they'd lose the game. We just had to keep it close, right? If we were close with 2 minutes left in the game, we're going to win that thing.
Well, of course, let's talk about some of the historic games you played in historic by an immense magnitude of the NFL history. Certainly, the drive, first and 98. Take us to that game, leading, the intricacies of that game, and then, of course, the final drive where Elway was able to lead the team down the field.
Sure. It was us against the world on that thing. Now they have security at stadiums. They really didn't back then. There was dog bones like 6 inches deep on our sidelines. They threw them at us. You had to leave your helmet on the sidelines because they were throwing stuff at us all game long. It was a nasty muddy field that had frozen, so you saw the tracks from the guy playing last week frozen in the mud out there. And we stayed at a downtown hotel about 2 miles, 3 miles from the stadium. And Friday, we went down, or Saturday, we went down for a practice at the stadium, and it was nobody there. It was just like a ghost town. Back in the day, there wasn't a whole lot happening in Cleveland. There is now, but back then there really wasn't. And the next day, that entire path was lined with Browns fans, cussing at us, yelling at us, barking at us. They drove around our hotel all night long, barking and honking their horns, trying to keep us awake all night long. It was a us against the world situation. The game itself, first half we dominated. Second half they came back and dominated. It was a back and forth and up and down. And what a great team the Browns had back then. Unfortunately, they ran into us too many times. And to come out, actually the drive just tied it up. That was what tied the game. We lost the coin toss. The Browns got the game, or got the ball, and we stuffed them 3 and out, and they punted to us, and then we went down, and Rich Carlos kicked a field goal that went right over the top of the upright. I mean, it was just, you could call it either way. Anybody from Ohio I've ever met said it was no good. Anybody from Denver said, "Oh, it's great. It was good." The ref said it was good, and there were no replay back then, so it was on to the Super Bowl for us. So what an amazing back and forth, great game. Just a historical game. They still play it on TV all the time. It was a special thing to be involved with.
And that drive really emphasized Elway's talents with running the ball, throwing the ball, having to use his head, everything that Elway had, his strong arm, his gun of an arm. That drive really was symbolic of his career.
It really was. That's what we'd seen it. It was like people like, well, weren't you amazed by that? No, I wasn't amazed by that drive. I'd seen it 20 times. It was what happened at the end of the game if it was close. And yeah, John was special that way. Just a tremendous clutch and pressure player.
I'm going to ask you this question because people still talk about it. Who was the best quarterback that you faced? And of course, John Elway was your teammate of yours, but there was Joe Montana, Dan Marino, and then we get into the conversation of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, and now you have Patrick Mahomes. Talk about the greatness of those quarterbacks during that era and how you would rate them, if you could, but 1, 2, 3, or are they just all great in their own different way?
Yeah, I gotta go with my guy John. His athleticism, ability to scramble, arm strength, just the total package was above and beyond those other the Montanas and the Marinos of the world. John became and worked hard at becoming a great leader, a guy who would make the right call at the right time in a 2-minute offense, and just a tremendous track record of you look at Marino got to the Super Bowl one time, and it was like his rookie year or something. Montana was tremendous, mental, as far as a mental quarterback and playing that system, but it was all little dink and dunk, and he didn't have the arm strength that John had at all. So you didn't have the challenges. I mean, we played against Montana, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times in my career. And the one time we did lose was in the Super Bowl. But other than that, we beat him every time. And it was because we just didn't have to worry about the deep ball very much because we could pressure him, and he wasn't going to get away. And he wasn't a guy that scared you with the deep ball like John did.
All right, so you go from the mud of Cleveland to sunny Pasadena, California, to take on the New York Giants. And, people that weren't around at that time, forget that you guys had the Giants in the first half, and if not for a couple of missed field goals, or you would have scored a touchdown instead of a field goal, we wouldn't be talking about your Broncos teams not winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was an interesting game. I sacked the quarterback. He fumbled. Roland Jones picked it up, ran for a touchdown. We would have been ahead by at that point, it would have been 17 points. There was an inadvertent whistle.
The inadvertent whistle. I mean, explain that to me, because fans don't get that.
Yeah, it was an inadvertent whistle, and the play was called dead. I haven't, I still don't, I mean, that would have forced them to run or to start passing the ball, and we would have known they were going to pass the ball, and we would have had a good chance to win that game. And it is what it is. That it's in the record books, and they ended up coming back and really playing a great game, and we didn't. But things could have been different if it's woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of stuff. It's difficult to watch what's gone on in for the Broncos, for me, for the Avalanche, just last night the Nuggets won the championship, and I was so close on so many teams and never got that over the top feeling of winning a championship.
I was talking to Chuck Foreman, former Vikings running back, last week, and
yeah, I grew up a Viking fan and a big fan of Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
So those teams that I loved lost a bunch of them too.
Well, that was that was my first memory growing up, was the Vikings in that Super Bowl, and I told they blocked the punt on Ray Guy, had the ball at the 2-yard line, they couldn't punch it in, and I said, did that affect the team for the game? And Chuck said, yeah. So did the early misses by Carlos and stuff affect the team on the sidelines?
Maybe
mentally.
It was a pretty tremendous coaching job, truthfully. That team, the Giants, were as predictable a team as you could imagine. If it was 1st and 10, they ran the ball 90% of the time, 95% of the time. If it was 2nd and 5 or more, it was a pass. 5 or less, it was a run, and everything was just laid out, just textbook for overloading what their tendencies were. And they came out, and early on they played their tendencies, but very quickly they switched over to opposite of their tendencies, and they caught us in a run defense every time they were passing. They caught us in a pass defense every time they were running, and just took advantage of that. And that was amazing coaching to get all the way to the Super Bowl, doing something one way, and then realizing the other team is going to overload that, and making those switches was a tremendous coaching job. And I got to tip my hat to the Giants. That I think they beat us mentally more than they beat us physically.
And in that game, there was a fake punt that the Giants ran. It was really kind of a turning point in that game for New York.
Sure.
Well, you guys lost that Super Bowl, but it didn't deter you. In 1986, you have the home AFC Championship game, and you're putting a whooping on the Browns in the first half, and they come roaring back. Talk about that game, and of course the famous Biner fumble, which it's tough to. I mean, when you lose something, it's tough to live with losing it. But when you're the source of the loss, people like an Ernest Biner, it's really tough to live with. Talk about that game and how you had the dominance early on, and then the Cleveland comeback.
Yeah, that was, again, great team in Cleveland. Team that more often than not would have won that game on the second half that they played. And it was that play, that fumble was a really heady play by our defensive back. A little bitty guy, 160 pounds, dripping wet kind of guy, that he knew if he tried to take on Biner would carry him into the end zone. So instead he went for the ball and punched it out. We got on top of it, and we're headed to the Super Bowl again. So how many plays are there in a professional football? 100 plays in a professional football game, approximately. To say it came down to that one play is not realistic. Yes, it did come down to that one play, but there were a lot of other plays that they could have made, or we could have made, that would have made a difference in that game. It's when it comes down to the end like that, I think every player looks at what they did and says, if I could have just made this one play, it would have made a difference. I sit around and talk with ex-players and about the plays they made in their career. More often than not, it comes around to the plays they didn't make. That's what you remember. That's what you try to fix. So I feel for Ernest. That was a tough play on a huge stage, and it is what it is. Our guy made a big play, and he better hold the ball tighter. I mean, I don't know what else to say for that one.
Well, you take the euphoria of winning that at the home crowd Super Bowl against the Redskins, and you have an early lead there, and then the second half. Explain what happened with 35 points there in the second half.
We had a couple of rookies that they took advantage of. We had a rookie inside linebacker and a rookie safety that were out of place a lot of times in that game, and they took advantage of it. And we knew what they were going to run. They run the pull both guards and hand the ball off up the middle, and it's just same stuff they always do. But for some reason, we didn't react properly. They did make some adjustments though. They put instead of just pulling both the backside guard and tackle and the front side guard, they also put in an H-back that came around too, which is the backside tight end. So they had an extra blocker out front, and they were kicking out our strong safety, who usually would fill on that play, and not worry about the rookie inside linebacker and the rookie free safety. So that they took advantage of our weaknesses, and that's what you should do as a well-coached team.
What goes on in the huddle when you feel things kind of spiraling out of control, and the pressure of a Super Bowl? Because there's no leeway. There's no port in the sea here.
Right. Yeah. You can't say we'll get them next time. Kind of thing. What goes on? Wow. You're just trying to figure out what's going on. There's you play your position properly. You try to make the play next time. It's an interesting timing thing in the Super Bowl. It was interesting to me that you said that, because in the Super Bowl, there's actually way more time than any other game you play. They between every series, there's a big long timeout so they can play all their Super Bowl commercials. Halftime is extra long so everybody can sing and all the song and dance can go on. And even before the game, you warm up, you leave the field, and they got to have the jets fly over and all this stuff happen. And by the time you come out, it's 45 minutes later. It's like, why did I warm up? It's just it's an interesting timing thing in the Super Bowl for sure.
What goes on in the locker room after such a heartbreaking loss and back-to-back Super Bowl losses?
Wow. All three of the Super Bowl losses that I was involved in, guys just go about their business and go home. I went directly to the Pro Bowl in all three situations. So gather my family, get on an airplane and fly off. There was no second place parade. They had a second place parade in Denver every time, and I missed all that. So I don't think that I had necessarily the same closure. I think a lot of other players did, because I didn't really spend that much time with them afterwards. It was a quick get the tape off, take a shower, catch a plane to Hawaii.
And we're talking with Karl Mecklenburg, 6-time All-Pro, 3-time AFC Champion of the Year with the Denver Broncos. I looked this up and I was shocked to see this, Karl. You're not in the Hall of Fame. When I think of 1980s linebackers, you obviously think of Lawrence Taylor and of course Mike Singletary. And when I think of the Broncos, you think of Elway and you think of Mecklenburg. And how's this possible that you're not in the Hall of Fame?
You don't have a vote and I don't have a vote, I guess. I don't know. I think there's a couple reasons. First of all, I was a late round draft pick. I was a 310th pick of the draft. So I didn't come into the league with a whole lot of fanfare. Secondly, I played so many different positions. I played all 7 defensive front positions. I was a defensive end or defensive tackle in a pass rushing situation. I was an outside linebacker. I was an inside linebacker. I was up, I was down, I was back, I was forth. So if you look at my statistics and try to compare them to Hall of Fame level players in the NFL, they don't match up. I mean, I had 79.5 sacks. At one time it was more sacks, and actually it was 79.5 regular season sacks. For some reason, they don't count postseason sacks for the Denver Broncos. I don't understand that, but that wasn't something that was taken care of. I had over 1,000 tackles. But if I'd have played inside linebacker the whole time, I'd have had a lot more tackles than I would have as a pass rusher too. So I didn't really match up statistically to somebody, and they got to apply. They got to put you in a position to consider you for the Hall of Fame. So I'm looked at as an inside linebacker. Well, I only had 6 interceptions in my career. I only had, like I said, over 1,000 tackles, but not crazy numbers like a Randy Gradishar does. I think one statistic that would put me in the Hall of Fame if they looked at it was I only missed 7 games in my career. I broke my thumb twice in 1988. The Broncos went to the Super Bowl in 86, 87, and 89. 88, I missed those 7 games. If you look at this scored against the Broncos numbers in those games, we gave up 9 more points per game in games I didn't play in 1988 than we did in games I did play in. I think that maybe would put me over the hump there, but it's not something they really look at.
Well, they should look at all that stuff. And I grew up a Jet fan. I was a big Joe Klecko fan, so I was happy to see him go into the Hall of Fame because I watched every play, but he didn't play in the big games. You at least had a chance to play in some of the big games. What's your thoughts on Joe Klecko?
No, he was a great player, a great guy too. I got to spend some time with him at the Pro Bowl, and just a class guy, and a guy that played his position well. And that's a tough position, playing that. That's why I was drafted as a nose guard. I don't know if you knew that, but I was drafted as a nose guard, moved to defensive end, and moved to inside linebacker, and then moved all over the place. But Joe spent his whole career down there getting double teamed. For those of us who play linebacker, we really appreciate the guy down there getting double teamed because that means we're free to the ball.
Okay, so 88, the team doesn't do well. 89, you beat Cleveland again, and it's back to the Super Bowl. And I remember putting a little wager on Denver. There's no way they're going to lose a 3rd Super Bowl at the time. that was like a Mike Tyson fight in his early days. That Super Bowl.
Yeah, I got leg whipped in the first quarter of that game, and it was on purpose. They tried to take me out, and they did. I got cartilage torn in both my knees, and it was a cheap shot, and I missed the game. So that was that. I don't know what to tell you about that game other than they were a great team. There was no question about that. They used some unnecessary tactics to injure me, and actually they tried 3 or 4 times to take out our nose guard Greg Cragen too with the same play, the leg whip thing. So yeah, I'm still a little bitter at the 49ers. I would have liked a chance to play in that game.
This is the kind of good stuff that the average fan doesn't know about. So take us into the locker after that loss. That was, a very difficult loss to have because it probably felt like, all right, this is the final time we're going to have a chance at this in some ways.
Not really. For me, the injury was really frustrating. I was getting treatment. I was, in the ice bath and whatever. So I wasn't really, in the locker room necessarily. But I thought we'd be back. There's 3 out of 4 years, and the next year, or maybe it was 2 years later, we ended up losing
Buffalo, right?
To Buffalo in on a fumble, at the end of the game. That if we wouldn't have fumbled that, I think we would have won that game. But again, we won some games on one play, and we lost that game on one play. So that's kind of the way it works. But so yeah, we felt like we'd be back. We were still a very strong team and a young team. And that year, Bobby Humphries had led the NFL in running. I think it was in his 2nd year, and was an unbelievable runner. And that was really something that we hadn't had until really didn't have until Terrell Davis came back. But having Bobby Humphries on the team and dominating the line of scrimmage the way they did, I thought we'd have a good chance to continue. Unfortunately, Bobby had broken his ribs in the championship game. He was wearing this big old plastic flak jacket to protect his ribs. And the first time John handed the ball off to him, he fumbled. and San Francisco recovered the fumble. And I don't think he ever carried the ball again. It was just like panic and, oh no, he's not going to be able to carry it. Ironically, first Super Bowl the Broncos won, Terrell Davis fumbled the ball on the first handoff, and second play Shanahan gave him the ball again. So it was a tough game to lose. I wish I'd have been able to play in it, but it was we deserved to lose. We ended up playing right into their hands, throwing the ball all the time, and they were ready for that.
Was it difficult for you to? I mean, you had to be happy that the Broncos won those Super Bowls in the late '90s and John and everything.
Oh,
But
I was thrilled. I was over the moon. All of a sudden, we're not the Buffalo Bills. We're not the Minnesota Vikings. We're world champions. I was watching the NBA championship game last night, and to see the Hanslicks and the Hastings and the guys in the house that had played for so many years for the Nuggets, and to see how excited they were to finally get over the hump and win that championship. No, it's to be identified as a winner, even if you were just part of the building process of that, is like a giant piano off your back. So I was very appreciative of Mike Shanahan and John and Terrell Davis and that whole crew.
So it's a lot like the Red Sox teams from the '70s when the Red Sox finally won in the mid 2000s. That the pressure's off. I'm a winner. I'm a winner now.
Right? It's you are all forever known if you play your whole career with a team. That's who you're attached to, whether you have any connection to them or not at that point. And so that was a wonderful feeling, and to see him go back to back, and to get to know the guys through the years has been a real pleasure.
Listen, we're talking about these wonderful stories you had in football, and you have the trophies behind you. And I'm sure all those pictures you have of football, and it's given you a wonderful life that you've been able to share with the community there in Colorado. And you're a spokesman and you're an ambassador for good faith and work with kids and everything. But there's a price to pay in football. And as a fan myself, I don't know what that price is, but you and other players do. And the stuff that's gone on with concussions and the NFL not looking out for you properly. Talk about that and how that's impacted your life.
Yeah, I had a number of concussions. That was, my job was to try and hit you as hard as I could, and your job is to hit me as hard as you can. And big, strong guys going full speed, and things happen. There were traumatic brain injuries, which fortunately now there's ways to treat it. I've been going to a guy here in town, Theodore Henderson is his name. He's runs a company called Neuroluminance, and they do a great job with stimulating blood flow in brains that, I haven't had a concussion I retired 28 years ago, right? So at least that long, and they can still activate areas of your brain that haven't been active for a long time. So it's a pretty cool thing. I chose that job. I loved that job. The contact was what I loved about it. My dad told a story when he was alive about my first football game. I was 10 years old. He missed the first part of the game. He had rounds that morning. When he got there, I was done, and he put his arm around me, thinking I was going to be sad that he missed my first game. And he asked me what I thought about football, and my response as a 10-year-old child was, "Dad, I really love to smash guys." I was a linebacker. That's who I was. So I don't have I'd still do it again if I had the opportunity. Again, fortunately, they've come up with some regenerative medicine stuff that really does help. I've had stem cell injections in my knees. I've had 18 football related surgeries. I paid a price, but then again, I ran 3 miles yesterday, and I'm a professional speaker. I get up and give hour-long keynote speeches. If your mind is too addled, you can't do that. So yeah, I'm fortunate that I got to do something I loved as much as I love playing football.
How hard is it to leave the game? Do you remember your last game walking off the field, and then how hard is it not to hear the cheers like in Gladiator, the roar of the arena? How difficult
Yeah,
is that?
that's one of the things I love about being a professional speaker. I get to perform, at a high level. Really, the pattern's very similar to football. I prepare for the group, just like I prepared for the opponent. I perform at a high level for a short period of time. I evaluate what went on afterwards, throughout what didn't go well, repeat what does go well, and get ready for the next one. So I still get that adrenaline, and I mean, I've been a professional speaker for 18 years. I do about 40 events a year. I'm up in front of groups of thousands of people sometimes, and yeah, you get that adrenaline, and you get up there and try to remember what you meant to say. That adrenaline will come right back. So yeah, it took me a while to find speaking, but once I did, I didn't miss football at all.
We've as a country, as a people, have been through difficult times and a lot of depression with the pandemic, and we were stuck at home, and there's been a lot of loss of family, friends, financial loss. What's your recommendation that you could give to fans? What's your key to life that you would say?
Yeah, success is overcoming obstacles on the way to your dreams. Um, if you're not running into obstacles, you're not pushing hard enough. For me, that was it. I mean, I was a JV football player as a junior in high school. I didn't even make the varsity team. I went to a Division II school on a 1/3 scholarship. 2 years into it, they took my scholarship away. I left and I walked on at the University of Minnesota. I made the team there. Was the 310th pick of the draft, 20 guys away from Mr. Irrelevant, a 12th rounder. They don't have 12th round anymore. I get to training camp. They give me a starter's number on my jersey. That's not a good sign. I get a hole in my sock first week of training camp, and I went in to get a new pair of socks. They said, "What's the matter with the other sock?" They only gave me one sock. I mean, that's what success is overcoming. We all are going to face difficulties in life. The people that are successful are the ones that hang in there and overcome.
Well, Karl, thank you so much for these few minutes here. Very insightful and pleasure. I've been wanting to talk to you for some time. And do you ever regret not signing in the USFL instead of the Broncos? Yeah.
You know, I believe, like 50th round. I don't know what it was, but I was such an oversight. And actually, I went to a Chicago Blitz training, like off-season camp. They rented a high school that was shut down. I guess the population had shifted, so a shut down high school. So we were practicing on a wood basketball court. I got tennis shoes and shorts on, and from that tryout, Coach Teerlink, the defensive line coach there, said I didn't have what it took to play in the USFL. So
Wow.
ironically, he was a coach for the Broncos for about 8 years. So I gave him hell every time I saw him.
Well, thank you again so much, Karl, for these few minutes here. It's dynamite having you, and I appreciate it. And again, thank you for what you did for all those years on the football field.
Thank you, Mike. Good to meet you, and go Broncos.